Hello and welcome to Learn, Do, Become Radio. My name is Alia and I am so grateful to be doing another bonus podcast for you today. And we're going to be talking all about establishing new habits and routines and staying consistent with them. I'm going to share a couple ways that my husband and I have created some really solid and important routines in a brand new stage of life, and also a few things from my childhood that have really impacted how I approach routines and keep them consistent, keep them moving forward in my everyday life. And for all the show notes and resources for this podcast, you can head to learndobecome.com/episode 253, and you'll find all the details there. And before I dive into the podcast, I have to think about, this is really a full circle moment right now. I'm sitting in our closet with my microphone clipped to one of my dresses because I was trying to record near our window and the bugs outside were just making so much noise, getting picked up on the microphone. And now that I'm sitting here, I realize I'm in the exact same place that my mom was recording all of her initial podcasts as she was a young entrepreneur with young kids, and obviously not in the same exact house or same exact place. But I think it's kind of fun that it's this full circle moment that my mom, April, got her start podcasting in wherever she could find quiet, which happened to be her closet, and all the clothes do make a nice echo absorber, so no complaints there. But I had to comment on the fact that it's kind of fun that it's a full circle moment with the mom and daughter podcast thing going on. All right, and one other quick announcement before the podcast. Just a heads up that at the time of publishing and recording this podcast, our Step Momentum accountability group is just a couple days away. This is an amazing opportunity to build your command central alongside Team Learn, Do, Become, and we'll be sending out 3 times a week little emails and text messages with bite-sized assignments and ways to check in and assess how you're doing, get some accountability, make some friends in the Step Mastery group. And it's all starting on August 28th, 2024, which is a Wednesday. And if you'd like to sign up, we would love to have you join us. And full details are found at learndobecome.com/momentum. So again, this is just a 4-week accountability group where we'll take you through our brand new revamped Step Mastery program, and it's just going to be a fun time. So that's coming up in just a couple days. Our team's getting all the details ready for that. All right, and now jumping into the podcast. My husband and I, just to kind of set the scene, my husband and I just recently moved out of state with our son for my husband to start medical school, and he's completed a few weeks so far, so still getting in a hang of everything. But we realized as we were talking together and preparing for this time that it was going to be more crucial and more important than ever to have really locked in routines as a couple, as a family, to make sure that not only he could have the time he needed to study and all the stuff ready on his school side of things, because obviously it's a very big investment of time, energy, money, all that kind of stuff. But then also that he had the ability to contribute in the home so that I could keep doing my work, that our family and our household could run as normal, and that we could find a really good balance with one another and our busy schedules. Because even though we're doing vastly different things, it's still important for us to have that time for connection and figure out what routines are going to help not only the household, but each of us to be successful. So that was what we kind of started as our baseline. And we said we do both have very full days, but we also need to make some time for the routines, obviously. And I received a few great questions from community members that I'll be sharing, and these relate to this overall question of establishing routines. So the first question I received said, how do you determine what your routines should be and how to turn them into consistent routines that get completed on a regular basis? Now, we hear this all the time. A lot of people say, I don't like routines. I don't like that I have to do certain things on a day of the week, or that I have to do certain things monthly or daily. I just don't like being locked into a set of routines. And I agree. I am not a routines person by nature. But I have found that when I give myself just a few routines that have to be done daily, weekly, monthly, and so on, and I leave the other routines as more flexible ones, that's what gives me so much peace and helps me get a lot of things done. For example, cleaning routines are not my favorite to have on the calendar or on a very regimented schedule, because the bathroom might not need to be cleaned every single week. Maybe it needs to be cleaned every week and a half or 2 weeks. Or maybe I need to wipe the floors 3 times a day, or maybe one day it's totally clean. I think that with especially a 1-year-old right now, house cleaning routines are not my favorite to have locked in. So I've made a personal decision to just write down a list of household routines that we should be doing just regularly and check in on, but I don't have a schedule where I force myself to stick to those. However, I do keep very solid routines when it comes to our son's nap time, because that helps me get a rest and do work. I have really good routines with the bills and grocery shopping and laundry, because those are things that are my non-negotiables. So when I look at my routines in those 2 categories of things that have to be done on a certain day or a certain time, no excuses or no getting around that, and then I give myself a bigger list of routines that are more flexible and that I just check in on, that helps my mind rest so much, because then I'm not stressing out about, oh, I didn't clean the bathroom and I didn't wipe the toilet and I didn't do XYZ. Nope, as long as I did my 2 routines for the day, I'm set. The rest of the time can be flexibly spent as I desire. So that's kind of how I have my perspective around routines, and maybe that can be something helpful for you to start as your baseline as well. And here's the process that my husband and I took as we decided on the routines that we wanted to have in this stage of life, because obviously we've never been to med school before. I haven't been the main stay-at-home parent before. We had a lot of back and forth for the first year of our son's life where we split the days, and that worked really well. So it was a lot of new stuff all at once for both of us. So here's what we did. First, we did a mind sweep to get all the routine ideas out of our heads. We just wrote them down, figured out what would we like to do, what are our non-negotiables, what kind of things do we envision for this stage of life. Then we figured out which ones were day or time specific. Like, for example, we have a weekly planning and budgeting routine that we thought we should probably do this on Sunday evenings, because on Sundays we've personally chosen not to work or do homework, so that day is totally open and it becomes our family day and a way to reset for the week. So that's date specific. Next, we created a vision for how we wanted each day to feel and go overall. So I said, well, when you get home from school, I would love it if that could just be our time to take off, of just like kind of let the school and work stuff go, and that becomes family time. So we figured out, how do we want the day to feel overall? In the morning, it might just feel like we're just setting things up. In the middle of the day, it might be more flexible, how our son's doing, how my work looks, how his homework is. And then in the evening, that's family time. So we kind of set up our day in terms of how it felt and how that looked for us. Next, we put any new routine items into our calendar so there would be time blocked out for them. And we really wanted to ask ourselves the question, as we went on with these routines, are there any that are getting pushed to the side or forgotten? Are there any that we're just forgetting about and we need some extra reminders for them? We really wanted to know, where are our sticking points when it comes to some of these brand new routines. And that was really helpful, because we realized, we both don't like doing this routine very much, so we probably need an extra reminder on our calendar to really motivate us to do that routine, because if we didn't have that external reminder to do the routine, it probably wouldn't happen. Things like, brushing our teeth and making our bed and getting dressed, we don't need calendar reminders for those. Those are just habits that are ingrained in us. But some of these new family routines that we have aren't quite there yet. So calendar reminders work best for us. And again, we'll talk a little bit later on about this, but as I'm sharing what works best for us, feel free to think about how you want to adapt this in your own life, because we're all so different. We all have different either stages of life or circumstances or perspectives on routines. So please don't feel like you have to follow my exact step-by-step when it comes to routines. And then in this next little checklist that I'm going through, we decided to review our routines list weekly together, and then do personal check-ins of our own daily routines. So as a couple, we look at our routines for the week and for the household and just make sure that we're both on the same page. But then anything that we personally have to do, we don't involve each other as much. When it comes to his schoolwork and his preparation of what he needs to take to class every day, or when it comes to what I do on a daily basis for my Learn, Do, Become routines, we don't really share a ton of those details with each other. We can if we want, but it's not something that we have personally chosen to do every single week or every single day. So that's our general framework that we've gone through. And if that felt a little fast, or if you want to go back and review that, again, all the details are on our show notes page, learndobecome.com/episode 253. And I wrote all those out for you. And then on the last little point I have on this list is that some of our example routines include exercising together, meal prepping on the weekends. We plan the kids' church music time. That's kind of our little responsibility at church. We do the singing time for all the kids, which is super fun, but that means it's another routine that we have to prepare, right? We do our homework and work routinely. We reset the house together each evening, which we'll dive in deeper in a second. And we also do our budget and calendar review every Sunday. So those are some of our routines that we really wanted to focus on specifically because those either needed calendar time where we really blocked them out to prioritize them, or those were things that are brand new routines. And we thought, well, if we don't put these on our list, then they're not going to be done or they're going to be totally forgotten about. So we just decided it made more sense to figure out those top items that we need a calendar, and then those just get put on our daily schedules, and just it starts to become second nature because we're quote unquote forced to do them every day when they're on our calendar. But that's been really helpful. And as an example, for some of those routines is, for example, the church music time. My husband and I just got asked to do this. So we have a little bag that has the different music that we're doing, some pictures to help the kids remember the words. And then every Sunday, Josh goes over what he wants to teach the kids, and then he helps share the music with me that I'm going to help play on the piano. So that's just our routine that's built into our Sunday evenings, because we figure we just finished the singing time that Sunday in church. In the evening, we can plan the singing time out for the next week, and then we don't even have to think about it for the entire week. We can just go to church on Sunday morning and have everything already planned, done, and the only thing we need to do is remember to bring the bag of singing time materials, which we did forget the last Sunday because it wasn't on our calendar. And when we got to church, I said, "Oh, is that on your calendar for next week so we don't forget them?" And he added it to his calendar, and now we don't forget to pack that anymore. So like I said, these routines are not habits quite yet. They're not second nature. It takes some time and some trial and error. But as we figure out what kind of reminders do we need to make these routines work, sometimes you have to have a little bit of a not great start, but then it becomes better over time. So I don't want you to think that all of our routines are perfect from the get-go. We definitely have our own struggles as well, starting new routines, and we're just working on it, just like you. All right, and then a little bit more on these personal routines. Our day kind of looks like this, where we have our morning routine where we get ready for the day, get breakfast, just take time that we need to set everything up for the day. Each of our days are generally flexible depending on what classes he has. He's pretty much on campus for 9 hours a day. And then I'm with our son, and I just balance my work time with nap time, or sometimes in the evening, since I like to work in the evenings. But then at 5 o'clock, that's kind of the magic time of our day, where my husband gets home, and we've created that routine where we put our phones down. We are either making dinner together or we're eating the dinner that I've prepared, and then we just have family time. We have about an hour where we just hang out. We usually just lay down and just talk about the day, and then our son plays toys and brings us books and just kind of walks around us while we talk. Then we have calendared exercise time because both of us are not naturally lovers of exercise. So we figured, let's plan it into our day right before he goes to bed. So when our son is starting to get fussy and doesn't really want to do a whole lot, we just turn on our exercise video, and we found that we really like doing Pilates together. So we get our Pilates video of the day up on the TV, and then sometimes our son tries to copy us, sometimes not, but that's a great way for us to have that time for exercise. Then we put our son to bed, and then after that, we have 2.5 hours blocked out for him to study and for me to do work and other like household management stuff. You know, I do more of the bill paying or the meal prep and the grocery shopping. So the evening is when I like to have my quiet time to focus, whether it's for Learn, Do, Become things. Like right now, I'm recording this podcast in the evening because I love to do that. And then I also have time to relax and just enjoy the time by myself since I've been with our son all day. And then at 9:30, I'll talk about this in a second when we talk about resetting our houses. At 9:30, we reset the house together, and we both stop all the school and work stuff that we're doing. We've both talked a lot about how there's always something more we can do. In his studies, there's always more that he could study, especially with all that they throw at him for the anatomy and all the different labs he's doing and stuff like that. And then for my work, there's always other projects or tech things or upcoming things that I could work on, but we all need that natural stopping point in our lives, and it's good to have that time to just stop and rest and pivot a little bit. And then for half an hour, we reset our apartment. Sometimes it needs a little more help, and sometimes it needs a little less, just depends on the day and how active our 1-year-old is in tearing things apart. Not really, but he does like to make a good job of scattering everything around the house. And then at 10, we have just like that time to get ready for bed. And honestly, the end of the day, resetting the house and just getting ready for bed, that's our other really great time to just talk to each other and ask how things are going, ask about the next day ahead. And that's been a really great routine way to build connection into an otherwise really busy time. Because at the start of medical school and as we're getting ready to move out here and start, I hardly heard any good advice from people, or I don't want to say that in a mean way. People were excited for us and they were, trying to be cheerful about it. But the majority of times what we heard is, oh, good luck. It's going to be so hard. You're going to hate it. You're going to be alone all day. And that sounded really discouraging to me because here I was excited for this new chapter of life with my family. And obviously my husband has a lot ahead of him for the medical process. But that just was hard for me to hear, where everyone just said, oh yeah, good luck with that. It's going to be so hard. And that was kind of what they left on. And I was just thinking, well, I know it's going to be a lot. I know it's going to be a really big adjustment from what we're used to. And, we're definitely both feeling that with our 9-hour days doing, busy stuff in our own respects. But at the same time, these routines that we've established have given us at least 3.5 hours of connection time as a family each day, and more so just with me and my husband when our son goes to bed. So the way we've scheduled our day, for some it might seem like, oh, you just planned out every hour of your day. That's no fun. But actually, I love it, because when I look at our calendar and I see that our 6 to 7 p.m. is our exercise time and getting our son ready for bed, that feels really good to me, because I know that we're going to take care of our bodies and our son's going to get to bed on time. When I see that I have built-in work time and quiet time in the end of the day, I could just lay there and do nothing. Or sometimes I listen to an audiobook and I paint. Or sometimes I work on a few work projects that need some extra quiet time and focus time. So I just want to emphasize the power of routines, because I'm not saying that medical school is easy. My husband's definitely putting in the hours and it's a lot, but he is doing really well because he has found routine time to study, and we have some really good things in place as a family. And obviously we're still getting used to, for me and our son, we're still figuring out what kind of things we like to do each day and how I can best balance my work with what he wants to do. And we're getting into a good routine. But I think that there's a huge power and benefit to doing these routines, because sure, it might make our life feel a little more structured, but when you create the routines that are the most impactful for your own personal situation and that are going to meet your own needs specifically, not copying my routine exactly, because that's not going to possibly work best for you. And not to keep, drawing on and on this topic, but that is just one of the huge, the most big pieces of advice I will share with anyone else who asks us about medical school in the future. Or that's something I'm going to just share with all of my current friends right now, and I want to share it with you. So, all right, I'll stop. I'll get off my routine soapbox, but I hope you can feel how passionate I am about these routines, where our house isn't perfect, our lives are not perfect, but we have this routine in place that gives us such a sense of stability. All right, so hope you enjoyed that. And I want to also emphasize that starting any new routine is considered a project. So if you're thinking, I want to do a brand new house cleaning routine, or I want to have a new bedtime routine for our kids, or I want to have a new work routine where I do XYZ as I start my workday, that's awesome. And those are going to be awesome once they're implemented, but don't treat it as a simple next action or task. Really treat this as a project, and maybe you'll want to go through some of the similar steps that Josh and I went through, where we did a mind sweep and we've talked about how we wanted our day to feel. We talked about what was most important to us routine-wise. That was a project. That was on our current projects list under our family projects for the month, and that was something that we really focused on during the month of July to prepare us for medical school starting in August. So treat it as a project, give yourself that time, give yourself next actions, give yourself room for trial and error, so that way these routines can really stick and truly benefit your life. Now, the final part of this podcast is another question that a community member submitted, and it said, I know that we should, quote, reset the room when we're done, but I'd love to listen to more about that. How can we remind yourself? How can we train our kids to do it? What if we're coming back to the same task soon and don't want to put it all away, but we still want things to be tidy? I need all the help. So I love these questions. They are such great ones, and I'm excited to dive deeper, I think, into each of these three. So, all right, as we dive into the questions, I also want to note that we all have different baselines for what it means to reset the room or reset our living areas, or even resetting our spaces when we're working on a project or a task. So again, what I'm sharing here might not be exactly what you want to do, but that's okay. Just change it a little bit. That's the beauty of what we teach here at Learn, Do, Become. So we all have different baselines, all have different circumstances. Just want to preface that. So if you find that you're in a situation where you have roommates who aren't super on board, or if you have adult children who are living with you, or if you're finding that you're sharing spaces with others who don't share the same view as you, that might need to have some separate conversations, and there might need to be some additional work done in those areas to eventually get on the same page, or at least in a way that you can, be respectful of each other, but also have the living spaces that you're envisioning. So again, I'm just going to be speaking from my own experiences and the things that have worked best for me, but I do recognize that not everyone lives in an environment where everyone's on board and everyone's excited to have that same end goal vision of resetting the room. So I encourage you just to do the best you can, and honestly, your example will speak volumes, and I'll talk more about that, how I am so grateful for my parents' example, because that is what has really encouraged me to stick with our resetting routines that we started as children. So the first question from that community member said, how can you remind yourself? Now, for my husband and I, we have a dedicated calendar task, as I mentioned, every evening from about 9:30 to 10 p.m. called Reset the Apartment. So it's literally built into our day, and we make sure that everything is reset for the next day before we go to bed. Some days we're able to reset super quick after our son goes to bed, if he goes to bed a little earlier than planned, and we're like, great, awesome, we have all that free time, 9:30 to 10 is opened up, we don't have to reset anything. But sometimes it takes a little more, so we kind of just have to gauge that day by day. But I love having this planned time, because this is when we do a lot of our talking one-on-one, but it's also when we can just make sure the apartment looks really nice. So when we wake up, there's nothing we have to do. So sometimes I'll wash the dishes while he cleans up all of our son's toys. And obviously once our son gets a little bit older and he can help put away things a little bit better, then we'll have him participate. But he's one right now and isn't super helpful with that. But we're trying little by little. But when it comes to end of the day, that's kind of our stuff. We'll fold the laundry while we talk. We'll sometimes turn on a podcast or an audiobook that we're listening to together. So we try to make it enjoyable while we're resetting the apartment. And again, this goes back to everyone's different baselines. For me, because we are in a state right now where we have no piles, we don't have big messes around, we have a consistent routine every single day of resetting, my baseline is very, very low clutter, nothing out, all the dishes basically washed and dried. I have just some very specific preferences when it comes to resetting my apartment, but I also know that when we had our son, when we had a newborn, those preferences had to be dialed back a little bit because we were both super tired, and it made more sense for us to wash all of the baby related stuff and make sure all of that was good to go. And we kind of put the pots and pans on hold for a little bit. Obviously, everything stayed clean. Nothing got to a terrible level, but we had to really be patient with ourselves and recognize that as stages of life changed and as things happened, we had to adapt with that. But as of right now, we have everything pretty much put away, looking generally more or less very, very clean. So that's my personal baseline, and that's the way that we close up our quote unquote close up the house. And of course, we're patient with each other if one of us is tired, or the other night I wasn't feeling super good. So I said, I'm just going to let some of these dishes soak and we'll wash them in the morning. So I'm not super strict on that, but we try our best. And others might find that calendar time isn't the best approach for them, but maybe you could use a sticker chart if you have children, or a simple checklist that could be helpful to motivate everyone living in the house. Maybe the checklist includes, is the sink clear? Has the dishwasher been started? Have we put away all the leftovers? Have we done XYZ? Giving a little checklist so that everyone in the household can be included in that and know what's expected of them by the end of the day. And also, when it comes to the smaller rooms that we're resetting, you might want to make it a simple family or household routine. So if you're not looking to reset the entire house at a specific given point, if you're just looking to reset the family room or the dining room or like the backyard if the kids are playing, then you might simply invite them to say, this is our family routine. Whenever we're leaving a place, whether it's the backyard, the family room, the playroom, whatever, we spend 2 to 5 minutes making it look better than when we found it. And that leaves a lot of room for interpretation, family to family, household to household, where it's going to look different for each person. But if you say, hey, when you're done playing in the backyard, we spend 2 to 5 minutes making it look better than we found it. So we need to put the toys back in the bin. We need to make sure the chalk is put away so it doesn't get gross outside. We need to make sure that we, did XYZ to make the backyard look better. So that might be another simple idea that you could implement, and maybe you put up a little sign that says, is the backyard better than you found it? And it's not to be judgy or it's not to be pushy, it's just to give that reminder, because especially with kids, a lot of visual, a lot of repetitive reminders, that's what helps it to sink in, and that's definitely what my parents did for us. And that leads us into the next section of this question from the community member saying, how can we train our kids to do these routines and to reset the room? So practice is my honest answer, because I can't tell you how many evenings my mom, specifically, my dad too, but my mom was usually the one home in the evening when my dad was working and before Learn to Become. And my mom spent a lot of time training us routinely to clean up the kitchen, tidy up our toys, get our school supplies ready and lunches packed for the next day, etc. And we had a simple whiteboard chart growing up that had 3 sections, morning, afternoon, and evening. And we had to complete certain routines in each of these times of day. And we were responsible for checking them off every single day. And also these routines were connected to the way we received our allowance. That's just what we did in our family. So it wasn't really a matter of choice if we wanted to complete these routines. They were requirements for us living in our home. We were part of the household. So as part of the household, we had certain things that we just had to do. So we either got to choose to happily do our routines, which they weren't hard. It was just simple things to help put away leftovers or clean a certain area of the house before we went to bed. It was very simple, but as kids, sometimes we complained. So we got to choose. Are you going to happily do your routines, or are you going to be grumpy and that won't be a part of your allowance? So if you're happy, that was part of your what you got to help pay for the things we were responsible to pay for. And then if we weren't happy, the routines still had to get done. Or if we chose to not do the routines, we had to make them up later. And that was kind of helping us to have that accountability, because it wasn't just you get paid or you don't get paid and you get to choose like, oh, I don't want the allowance. I'm not going to do my routines. It was, nope, you still have to do the routines and you're not going to get the allowance for it, because that was a personal choice. So that might sound a little harsh, but it wasn't in practice. And very rarely did we ever refuse to do our routines, because they were so simple. We all pretty much worked at the same time, so nobody felt left out. And I personally thought it was a great system, and it really helped me get my routines solidified today. So that was just our personal family thing for getting the kids to do it. We had very simple required routines, and they just happened every single day. And the biggest impact in my own routine completing process was really the consistent example of my parents. They modeled how our family resetting the home routines went, and they still do this to this day. Even when we have family movie nights now with all the kids, we're 17 to 24 right now, so we're older, we're more experienced, we still help with the room reset to make sure that all the blankets are folded, any snacks are taken back downstairs, the pillows are put back, the bean bags are put in their places, etc. So it really is just a part of our family culture and our everyday lives at this point. So now when we leave rooms, we just know I'm going to make it look better than when I found it. And if the whole family is doing something in the room, we all reset the kitchen before we leave and pack up dinner. And we all just know that that's what we do. And there's not really any huge coordination. We just sometimes say, all right, hey, let's reset the room, and then we'll say goodnight. And that's all we need to hear. And we just make it happen in a couple minutes and we're done. And then the final part of this question says, what if we're coming back to the same task soon and we don't want to put everything away, but we want things to stay tidy? I really think this is task dependent. So obviously if you're doing something huge like painting a room or working on a big project like that, you're going to have some substantial supplies for that, and you can just do your best to keep them orderly. But sometimes big projects can't really stay tidy. But when we're talking about smaller things, here's a couple examples. So one of the things I love to do is paint by numbers, and my materials usually include 20-ish colors of paints and some paintbrushes, the canvas, and materials to clean the brushes. And I keep all of my little materials in a to-go takeout container, so I try to reuse when I can. So I just figure I have this perfect size container, it can hold all my paints and my paintbrush, and I literally just keep this container with my canvas and the little cup I use to clean my brushes. And so whenever I'm ready to work on my painting, I just bring out that container and it has all my supplies in it, and I try to take out as little as I need to use right then and there, and then that way I can just pack everything right back up when I'm done painting, and it's super easy to come back to it. I have all my support materials in one little box, and the canvas just sits next to it, and that's it. I don't have anything strewn around the house. It's not in multiple places. I don't have to hunt anything down. It's just right there, ready for me to paint. And something similar that I do for my computer and office work is I have 3 items that are always out on my desk with my computer. I have the little mouse I use that goes with my laptop, I have headphones, and I have my blue light glasses. So I just have those 3 things that sit on my computer, and I use them every single time I work on the computer. But then I also have a lot of other things like my computer charger and a few other little tech things I sometimes have to plug into my computer. The microphone that I'm using to record right now. I have lots of little pieces of tech items, but I'm not using them every single time I use the computer. So I just keep those in a little basket in my desk, and whenever I need them, they're not even a foot away from my computer, and I can just pull them out of the basket and use them. But otherwise, they're kind of out of sight, out of the way, and I just use them on an as-needed basis. So I personally try to just limit how many things I take out, or I try to keep them really consolidated in one place so that the items don't spread around. And of course, this will look unique to you and the things you're working on, but you could try following the same principles to see if that makes an impact or if that helps the process of getting items out and putting them away just a little bit easier. So, all right, that pretty much wraps up the podcast. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope that these ideas really helped you to see how you might be able to implement some new routines in your life. And if you have any favorite routines that you want to share, I'd love to hear them in the comments of our show notes page. Again, that's learndobecome.com/episode 253. And just one more announcement again for our Step Momentum accountability group. That's starting on August 28th, 2024. We're going to have a kickoff call live with our team, and then at the end of the 4 weeks, we'll have another live call, which is a graduation with a virtual cap and gown for all those who completed the STEP program with us during that 4-week accountability group. So if you're interested in receiving texts and emails or emails, you don't have to do both, 3 times a week with little bite-sized assignments and some great accountability opportunities to help you move through the Command Central building process and have everything solidified for the future, which just helps you set up the Command Central and be good to go forever and ever. We would love to have you join us, and all the details can be found at learndobecome.com/momentum. And for anyone who's already a member of Step Mastery, you have a little button inside your members area on the programs page where you can register. Just one click and you're all set. And then for those in our Step Self-Study and Step Starter programs, we have coupon codes available that you can use to apply what you've already paid to the Step Mastery program and join us in Momentum. So again, if you have any questions, we have lots of things answered on our information page, learndobecome.com/momentum, and we'd love to see you there joining us if it's the right time for you. And of course, we have some fantastic free resources on our website and YouTube channel and the podcast, so you really can't go wrong when it comes to setting up your Command Central. But if you would like some extra accountability, this is a great chance to do so. So, all right, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for joining us on Learn to Become Radio.